What if the key to your best garden harvest was sitting in your trash bin right now? We're talking bigger, healthier food without spending a single dollar on fancy plant food or complicated gear. Amish families knew this secret for generations. They proved that simple waste, like an eggshell, could turn into the most amazing growth, and it works for anyone. It sounds almost too good to be true, right? We're so used to thinking that a great garden has to come from a store. You buy bags of special soil, bottles of chemical plant food, and all sorts of gadgets. But the Amish prove that's just not the case. Their approach is the complete opposite. It's about using less to get a whole lot more. And I mean a lot more. When people study these old-school methods, the results are pretty amazing. Imagine getting around 70% more food from your garden, while watering it almost 40% less. That's not a typo. More food, less work, and you're not spending money on fancy stuff. This isn't just one magic trick. It's a whole different way of seeing your garden. It's a system figured out over generations by families who depended on their gardens to eat. They couldn't just run to a hardware store. They learned to build healthy soil and work with nature, not fight against it. And today, we're going to show you how you can do it too, starting with the simple, powerful secret of the eggshell. So what's actually in an eggshell that makes it so powerful? Well, to put it simply, it's loaded with calcium. An eggshell is made of about 95% calcium carbonate. And for a plant, calcium is everything. Think of it like a skeleton. Calcium helps the plant build strong cell walls, making it sturdy and resilient. It helps it stand up straight and fight off diseases. If you've ever grown tomatoes or peppers and seen the bottom turn black and mushy, that's called blossom end rot. And it's usually caused by one thing, a lack of calcium. But here's the secret the Amish understood better than anyone else. You don't just toss eggshells onto your garden and expect a miracle. That's not how it works. For them, eggshells weren't a quick fix. They were a key ingredient in a long-term recipe for building incredible soil. It was all part of what they called a 3-year soil building method. It's a slow, patient process. In the first year, they'd grow plants specifically designed to enrich the soil, like certain types of clover or beans. These plants act like a natural fertilizer, pulling nutrients into the ground. Then came year 2. This is where they'd layer on the good stuff: rich compost, aged manure, and right there in the mix, crushed eggshells. Those eggshells weren't just for a quick calcium boost. As they break down slowly over time, they release that calcium into the soil, making it available for future plants. They also help improve the soil's structure and balance its pH level, making it the perfect home for vegetables. And in the 3rd year, they'd let it all rest. They would let all those layers, the compost, the manure, the eggshells, break down and combine, turning into a dark, rich, and incredibly fertile soil. It wasn't about feeding the plant for just one season. It was about creating a garden that could feed itself year after year. The eggshells were a promise of future strength, a mineral deposit in the bank for the seasons to come. That patience is what separates a good garden from a truly self-sustaining one. Instead of a quick chemical rush, they built a foundation of health that lasted. All right, so how do you actually put this into practice? How do you turn your leftover eggshells into that black gold for your garden? It's surprisingly simple. And it starts, of course, with just saving your eggshells. Keep a bowl or a container on your counter and toss them in after you cook. Now, the old-timers didn't leave behind a super detailed instruction manual. They were practical people. They likely just crushed them up and threw them in the mix. But if you want to get the absolute most out of them, there are a couple of quick steps that really help. First, give them a quick rinse under the tap. This just gets rid of any leftover egg white, which can attract pests you don't want hanging around your garden. Then, you need to let them dry out completely. You can just spread them out on a windowsill for a day or two. Or, if you're in a hurry, pop them on a baking sheet in the oven at a low temperature for about 10 or 15 minutes. Drying them makes them brittle and way easier to crush. Once they're dry and crumbly, it's time to break them down. You don't need any fancy equipment for this. Just put them in a sturdy bag and use a rolling pin, or even the bottom of a heavy jar, to crush them. So the big question is, how small do you need to go? The finer you crush the eggshells down to a powder, the faster that calcium gets released into the soil. It becomes available for your plants to use much more quickly. But leaving some slightly bigger, coarser pieces has its own benefits. Those larger bits will break down slowly over several seasons, providing a steady, long-term supply of calcium. They also help improve the soil structure by creating little air pockets, which helps with drainage and root health. Honestly, a mix of fine powder and some small, gritty pieces is perfect. Okay, now for the most important part, how you use them. This is what truly separates the Amish method from just sprinkling shells around your plants. Remember that 3-year cycle we talked about? This all happens in year 2. You're not just adding this to the top of your soil. You are literally building a new, supercharged layer for your garden bed. Think of it like making a lasagna. You'll add a layer of rich compost. Then you'll add a layer of well-aged manure. And then you'll mix your crushed eggshells right into that blend. You're layering all these amazing ingredients to create a powerhouse of nutrients. The eggshells are a key part of that recipe, working together with the compost and manure. This entire mixture then gets worked into the soil, where it will all break down over the next year. By the time you get to year 3 for planting, that whole garden bed has transformed. It's not just dirt anymore. It's a living, breathing ecosystem, packed with minerals and organic matter, ready to grow the healthiest, most productive vegetables you can imagine. You're not just feeding the plant for a season. You're building the pantry. And that pantry is going to feed your garden for years to come. But this whole approach, this idea of building your garden's pantry, goes so much deeper than just eggshells. It's about a mindset, a philosophy of not wasting a single thing. To the Amish, the world isn't divided into useful stuff and trash. Everything has a purpose, a potential second life. It's a way of thinking that values resourcefulness and self-reliance over convenience. They aren't just looking for quick fixes or modern shortcuts. They're focused on working with nature to create a system that basically runs itself. Think about it. That eggshell is just the beginning. The coffee grounds from breakfast? That's not trash. That's future nitrogen for the compost pile. The ash from a wood stove? That's a careful dose of minerals for the soil. Even banana peels get buried right next to plants to deliver a slow, steady boost of potassium. It's a completely different way of seeing the world. Instead of throwing something away, the question is always, how can the garden use this? And this isn't just a quaint, old-fashioned idea. It delivers incredible results. One study looked at this exact kind of 3-year soil building method, using compost, cover crops, and natural additions like eggshells. The outcome was staggering. Gardens using these techniques grew about 70% more food. Let that sink in. 70% more vegetables, just by working with what you already have. And on top of that, they needed 40% less water. This philosophy touches everything. To save water, they might bury unglazed clay pots among their plants. The pots slowly seep water right to the roots, which can cut water usage by another 70%. It also keeps the surface of the soil dry, which means fewer weeds and less fungus. It's just smart. This self-reliance extends to the very seeds they plant. Many families practice seed saving, carefully selecting seeds from their strongest, healthiest plants each year. They call it one of their most valuable inheritances. Over generations, they develop seeds that are perfectly adapted to their specific soil and climate.